Here we go.
And we're live. All right.
We are
How you doing?
live. I'm good. Doing good. How are you doing?
Just cleaning the glasses. Gotta be able
I
to see
am.
the webcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's,
I'm doing all
do
right.
you
So
wear
as you can probably
glasses?
surmise, yeah, go ahead.
Do you wear
I do.
glasses?
I'm wearing contacts right now.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, I kind of forget until I have lights in front of me. I forget about the dust, or I'm able to like ignore the dust. And then when the lights is
I,
shining in, it's like, oh, now I've got this star field in front of me.
oh,
But you are somewhere else.
for yourself. I am somewhere else. Of all places. In San
Oh,
Jose,
your internet.
GTC.
You were fine up until we started.
Pretty awesome. I don't know. Then of course it started dropping.
Yeah.
I wonder if I
As
can do like
soon
a
as we
lower
started.
bandwidth kind of version here. That's what I'll do.
Yeah.
Okay, let me try. Is it any better? It's gonna be kind of muddy. Did that help at all?
We'll see. So far,
We'll see.
say some things.
All right. I'll kind of stay with it. Some things. So I'm here at NVIDIA GTC this week, attending the conference. I'm speaking, but only for about 15 minutes. Other than that, I'm just sort of socializing, looking at vendor booths, taking in Jensen Hang's keynote, for example. It's been pretty busy.
So I
yourself?
kind of skimmed through that keynote.
Yeah.
I guess it was more exciting in person.
I think so. Maybe. All right. So what we're talking about is Stratechery. I think was talking about the keynote a little bit. I think Ben Thompson nailed it when he said Jensen Huang is kind of the Taylor Swift. Someone else said it. My apologies. And Ben Thompson sort of retweeted it, but someone had said that Jensen Huang is the Taylor Swift of artificial intelligence, which is maybe why I thought the keynote was so entertaining. There was a lot going on. There was a lot of announcements.
Oh, really?
The biggest thing is, I think it's just that announcement of the new, is it H100? Or sorry, B100. H100 was last year. The B200 chip. And talking about basically how they made it, that kind of stuff. I thought was really interesting. That's sort of the big announcement. Like, hey, we've got a new AI chip, and it's two fused together, similar to what we've seen from the Apple side. And they've got a CPU on die, and then they put two of them on them when you buy a kit, basically that slots in, which is pretty cool. I think the major advancement is that it takes less power to do the same sort of thing.
It looked like it was a big board. It's not like a
massive. Like, I don't know how to do it. Like in terms of size, it's about the size of like a MacBook Pro power brick, like that kind of that size.
Oh, okay.
Now I haven't met Jensen Huang in person, but I did see him on stage from pretty far away. It's like it's about this size compared to his head, so I'm pretty sure it's about that size. But there's two of them on the board, as well as a CPU. So there's a Hopper CPU and two of these chips. So the board itself is it's
board
pretty large.
big.
Yeah, it's quite large. And the prototype that they brought out, which is apparently was worth billions of dollars just to like get the prototype set up, was massive. Like the really big. Sorry, my hands are out of the screen there, but it was larger than my shoulders, basically. So it was something that he had a hard time picking. You could see him struggling trying both of them with two hands. If they rehearsed it that way, because he was certainly having a hard time there. Hopefully, I didn't drop out. I saw kind of pause, but
you did. But you were
kind of awesome
describing the platform, the board. But okay.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so it sounds like it was the same keynote as last year. I mean, it was like, oh yeah, there's another chip. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean,
it's faster. There's another chip. It's faster. It's awesome.
It's faster. It's lower powered. I think the main thing that they're trying to do is create that kind of moat, and maybe that's what I kind of want to talk today. It's like software moats and how that works. Yeah. And in particular, and this is maybe for me because I was looking for the blue Kubernetes logo the whole time. So I was with Jensen Hang. We were in the audience, and we were kind of like laughing about what they're going to announce, that kind of thing. And to me, I thought, I wonder what the Venn diagram is of the Kubernetes people at KubeCon and the sort of AI type people at GTC. And it feels like the overlap's pretty big, So I was expecting to hear more about Kubernetes. It was like an
Mhm.
also ran kind of thing when they talked about the NVIDIA. I believe it's the inference model service, so NIMS basically. So it's kind of
Mm.
like a Docker hub basically for AI apps that you would grab and download, which sounds very similar to a tool that I've used
Yeah.
elsewhere, for example.
Right.
Um, the only thing is that this platform only supports NVIDIA GPUs, so it doesn't support anything else.
Mhm.
So ROCm, Intel, what have
Yep.
you, not going to run kind of thing. So it's
Yeah.
if you want to use this cool platform that all the
Right.
vendors and partners are working towards and publishing for, you need to have the NVIDIA platform on your end,
Right.
which
Right.
is, listen, to be
Makes
expected.
sense.
However,
Yep.
it's a bit of a power play, right? Like CUDA is one of those things. CUDA for years, pretty good,
Mhm.
ergonomics compared to writing an SDK on your own for a graphics chip or writing your own shaders. I don't know if you've ever tried that. Shader programming is very alien to me. It's very
Mhm.
difficult to understand. But CUDA, at least, I've gone through some examples and it hasn't been that bad. So I wonder if this is kind of pushing that a little bit more forward. So like this is
Right.
like a marketplace for CUDA apps that you can grab kind of thing.
Okay.
That's what it looks
So
like to
when
me. I don't
is
know.
so the chip or board that was announced yesterday, when does it show up in, like, outside of a single $1 billion board?
So as far as I could tell, they're taking orders right now for data centers. If I understood that right. So Matt, if you want to
Okay.
build a data center, Jensen's happy to take your calls. He said he can work with
Great.
Michael. I think he's referring to Michael Dell to get
Mhm.
started, which is awesome. Uh, Maybe I missed the announcement, but it looked like a fall kind of thing. That's
Okay.
kind of what I remember. So I could be wrong. In terms of whatever that data center build is, I can't imagine that happening within months. So I'd assume it's
Yeah.
like a year delivery kind of thing. But basically, it sounds like they're in fab now, and maybe I've misunderstood or was reading
Okay.
between the lines. And then whatever that there's a lead time for fab to go to market. So
Right. Right.
I'm not sure how long that time takes, but it sounded like 3 months kind of thing. But yeah, I
Mhm.
don't know. Maybe I'm guessing at Paul.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
apologize. But it sounds like this year basically is what I'm getting. And the data center stuff, obviously they'll take your money and start planning it
Right.
and stuff. I think hyperscalers
So,
is probably who they're targeting.
yeah. I mean, it makes sense to come out with a bigger, faster chip, because they've got competition that's trying to get as good as them or as fast as them, and, Olama just pushed out AMD support, and I haven't played around with because I don't have an AMD card, but it
I'm gonna have to
sounded
grab
like
one.
well, it sounded like their, like, top-end card is, like, half the price, I think, half the price of the A100 or the 4090. Well, half the price of I can't remember what was the top card on the consumer end or more of the data center side.
I think it's on the
Um,
consumer end. I don't know the data center stuff,
yeah.
but I think it's a
Okay, so yeah.
7090 or 7950 XTX.
Yeah. So that is like half the price of the 4090 on the
Yes.
NVIDIA side and maybe three-quarters of the speed. So it's not as fast, but it's getting close, and for half the price, which is like a pretty great thing.
Yeah, I mean, it ROCm support is actually really interesting as well because we were talking about Mac GPUs last week and CUDA
Mhm.
and things like that. And on Mac, basically, if you want to use, I hate to say like a real GPU, but like a physical, external, discrete GPU, this is
Mhm.
sort of the way to go. Unfortunately, I don't believe Mac OS supports the dual GPU system. So the
Mm.
7950 XTX, I think, isn't supported because it's two GPUs in one card, basically.
Mm.
But Mac OS does support the single GPU in a card, and those are really cheap, like half the price of the
Mm.
other one and probably half the performance.
Right.
But you're going to get like for a quarter of the price of the 4090, you're
Right.
going to get half the performance ish, or like a
Yeah.
third of the performance ish. So
Right.
if you can add multiples, maybe you could do like multiple things
Right.
at the same
Yeah.
time. I don't know if you can gang them up or what have you.
Yeah.
but it does look kind of promising. And I don't
Yeah.
want to mention like the Hackintosh word, but I do kind of want to go down that AMD path to see what it looks like for external GPUs on a Mac Pro or something like that.
Right.
Because I guess my thought is that it's going to be faster than the M series GPUs for Gen AI applications, mainly around like cooling, just like in terms of when you're running stuff for a long time. But I'd love to see, because my Mac Studio will actually kick into fan high gear mode now if I'm running Olama for like a couple days, like
Right.
for no
Right.
reason. I don't need to run it for a couple days. But when I'm doing that and I just leave it running overnight, that kind of stuff, and I come
Right.
back to that context I had before, it is unfortunately like not a jet engine, but an engine for sure. You can hear it.
No, we're not pre-recorded. As proof that we're not pre-recorded.
Yeah, Nate, I'm not sure if you saw the blurriness, but yeah, this would be hard to pre-record. or perhaps it would be very easy to pre-record, but maybe my
Yeah.
sense of
Yeah,
quality
we had to
would suffer.
we pre-recorded, and then we went through all sorts of filters to try to simulate a really bad connection. It was awesome, but we kind of made it
Oh,
worse. Yeah, that'd be
that's smart. On that note, there's been some talk about like the uncanny valley about these AI personas and avatars and things like that. And maybe this is what we need to get to, is like stop going for the 4K or 5K or 8K
hmm
images. We need to get back like the
right.
320p webcam setting with like dropping internet.
Yeah, like the kind of visual equivalent of there was a tool I used to use a while back called, I think it was called WANEM,
Okay,
WANEM, made by Tata Consulting, um, and
interesting.
they it was, I think it was just an ISO that you could run, and it would be like a proxy for anything going over it, and it would simulate a bad connection.
Cool.
So
Oh,
simulate,
I mean, I've got one right
going on
now.
a mobile connection. Yeah, simulate going on mobile, or and you could say, drop every, some random number of packets between 10 and 20 every minute or so. You had a lot of flexibility, a lot of control over how bad your connection was, to simulate what's like a typical, if you're building a product and you want to see, well, what's it going to be like for somebody in a really bad connection. um
Right.
this is a way of doing that, and there's a number of those tools. So something like that, where it would kind of simulate a bad video connection.
Yeah, so we pipe our FFmpeg stream through this in order to simulate like the video, I guess. Once we get access to Sora, we could start doing that. Sorry,
Yeah, yeah,
Nate, we're not that advanced yet.
yeah, no. And hello, Tariq from Dubai. It's been a long time since I've been in Dubai. I used to go maybe 4 or 5 times a year. I go to Dubai and stay
Wow.
at my favorite hotel right by the fort, the old fort, and then on really hot days, you go into the fort and go downstairs, and it's like this blast of AC, and it was lovely. But we're just go that so in Dubai, this like old, I guess the older part of the city,
Yep.
old is kind of a uh it's a weird word to use for that, because I mean the oldest building in the town is like from the 60s, and it's one
Right.
of the sheikhs the house, because I think my understanding is before that it was all tents that they would move around to different places as they were
Oh,
trying
interesting.
to do pearl diving, because that was a big industry before oil. Um,
Wow, I didn't know
and
that.
but there's one older building, older than 1960, and that's the fort. I'm not sure who built it, the British or some other group, not local. They built this fort, and inside the fort is now a museum, really cool
Mhm.
museum, and they have these amazing structures made of, at least last time I went there, made of some sort of like almost like burlap. With all the
Oh, wow.
walls are made of like this burlap material. Um, and you stand in the middle, and then you're at the bottom of these like wind chimneys. I think they're Bastakias,
Okay.
and just sitting under it. You could be 100 degrees outside, and you sit under this, and there's this cool breeze on you because of the way that these walls are shaped. And you look around the city at older buildings, and you'll see these I think they're called Bastakias, or something like that. These chimneys that bring the wind down and cool the area. Anyway, I see that
Wow.
I saw Dubai listed. I thought, oh yes, I remember. I used to go there a lot.
That was awesome. So I find that really interesting. Like the architecture is informed by the place that it's in, which I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
I really like that when like architecture incorporates something or like
Hmm.
function, like form follows function basically. So it
Right.
it looks different because of that. That's
Yep.
really cool. I'll have to pull up photos because that sounds amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, I grew up in a hot climate near Miami. I grew up on the island
Right.
off the coast of Miami, and we just took advantage of AC, and so it didn't really matter what
Yeah.
the shape of the building was because it was just AC. Although there was um, in one of the neighborhoods kind of on the mainland called Coconut Grove,
Hmm.
they have this older building built in the, I don't know, 20s, 30s, 40s, somewhere in there, called, I think it was called the Barnacle. It's like this octagonal shaped building, but because of all the sides were open, there was constantly this nice breeze, and um,
Oh,
it was a lovely place to be. Um, Otherwise, you need that AC.
yeah, I love that kind of open house concept. So
Yeah.
when I was living in Japan, for example, some of the houses would do that where you could open the sliding
Mm.
doors and let like the
Hmm.
cross current go through, as well as
Yep.
in Hawaii. Some of the older structures as well are
Hmm.
built that way so that the air can flow through, but you're in a shady area. And it's
Right.
really interesting to sort of see that, I don't know, like that natural AC, I guess,
Yeah.
compared to like us pumping power into things and
Hmm.
stuff like that. And I don't know how long it's going to take us to come back to thinking about architecture and how it, is related to the earth instead of
Right.
just pumping power into everything. But I do
Yeah.
feel like those sort of ecological friendly structures are really important for our future going forward. I don't want to be like the EX that we were talking about like last week, but I do think like this architecture that we're now getting into and looking across different cultures, we could probably like pick and
Right.
choose things that'll work in different areas, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's super, super cool. This is like a
Yeah.
product of like mass
Mm.
transit and things like that. Now that we can explore the
Yeah.
world and start to pull from our past, I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
Love it. We get some more. There's lots of people in the chat this week, so we get someone
Yeah.
else from Melbourne, Australia. So hey, programming series, this is amazing. I love it.
Mm.
We're getting more guests. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I know. 40 people. 41 people. What? 42 people. Oh my God! It's growing. What are these people doing?
what are you
We're
doing in here?
boring
And blurry.
and blurry. Well, he is. He is. Yeah.
Wow, there we go. Oh, look at that. And you
Videos
get some
on
thanks in the comments about
LLMs.
your LLMs. Whew. That,
I sign autographs at 3 p.m. and just come by my house.
that is, yeah, we just need to find you on Bainbridge Island. So
Yeah.
have you
Yeah.
followed, like, are there any other announcements because there's like 3 conferences happening right now. I think SRE's con's happening, there's KubeCon, and then there's this one. So I've been obviously over-rotated on this one, but is there anything coming out of
Right.
KubeCon that I missed or anything
I
like that?
don't
Or
know. I mean, I know
not so much?
Olama, some of the folks at Olama are there.
Okay.
Although it's not quite the presence at KubeCon. I mean, they were there last time, and in Chicago, and the reason for that was that we had to get our money in for KubeCon, and it made sense because at the time
Right.
we put the money in and like signed up, we were making a role-based access control tool for Kubernetes, and then we pivoted to
Right.
Olama, and
Right.
so it no longer made sense. But then we've kind of doubled down because, well, it's Paris. I mean, why not go to Paris? That seems like a good idea. Oh.
Fair enough. What about yourself?
Um,
I also haven't watched your videos lately, so you're getting a lot of comments in the chat. I can only assume that we
I
have a
know.
lot of visitors because your videos have been working very well.
They have been. Oh my God, yeah. I was trying to make sure that I would release a video every Monday and Thursday. And Monday was yesterday. Did not release a video. And it's
Uh-oh. Okay.
Tuesday and and I'm not getting it out today. It's like it ended up the video I had planned, I thought, okay, this is gonna be an easy one. It'll be great.
Yep.
I'll have it done on like Saturday and it'll be great. I'll be ahead of time. But I kept running into issues. And it
Wow.
turned out I figured out what the problem was. It was um basically asking stupid questions. I was trying to build
I've done that.
a more yeah, a more full RAG environment, a RAG
Yep.
solution. So retrieval
Yep.
augmented generation, and the
Mhm.
idea being that you collect a whole bunch of documents, split it into smaller chunks, and then you could ask a question, and it would feed the relevant documentation into um, into the model so that the model can come up with a good answer. So it's a way of getting more recent or more specialized or more private information. Make sure that you just get the relevant pieces, and then the
Mhm.
model can answer a question based on that stuff. But I don't know. The questions that I was asking. So I the goal of the video is actually to figure out what is the right chunk size. So the idea
Right.
of RAG is that you split up the source text into lots of chunks, and those
Mhm.
chunks are some length and maybe some
Yep.
amount of overlap. But what's the right size? Is there a
Oh, I
right
didn't know about the
size? And
overlap. Okay.
yeah, so you could sometimes you do overlap, um,
Interesting.
but you know how big do you need to do it? If you do it too big, then you've got the same problem that you had before, where you're just sending in too much junk and not much relevant stuff, and so the model's confused and answers in a way that doesn't make any sense. Um, and so, is there a good chunk size? But every response I was getting was just nonsense. Even for small chunks, large chunks, it was just all just pure nonsense. Not nonsense. I mean, it all made sense. It just wasn't the answer to the question. And
Right.
so it was, and mostly it was because I was asking questions that weren't actually in in the. For some reason, I'm like I spent all this time troubleshooting and debugging when really the problem was I was asked they were just questions that were not relevant to the text that I was putting in, and
Gotcha.
it took me 2 days to figure that out.
I think that friction log to me though is really important because guaranteed you're not alone in terms of like who's going to
Sure.
to cover this problem, right? The other thing
Yeah.
that we're kind of touching on it, it was like sort of mentioned in in the chat, is like people don't understand RAG. So retrieval augmented
Yeah.
generation is what Matt was talking about. I'll give you my understanding, and then again, Matt can correct me because this is normally how
Mm.
this works. So
Mhm.
my understanding is you've got a model, and what you can do with RAG is sort of divvy up some documents or something that you've got and feed it into like a, hey, you should also look at this in the model,
Yep.
but I believe you can weigh it so it can like look at your data a little bit more than
Right.
what it may have been trained on, depending on the technique that you're using.
Mhm.
And then when you ask it questions, it can give you answers based on the data you fed it as opposed to what it's been
Right.
trained on, which is great for
Correct.
purpose-built like internal applications. And there was
Right.
another question in here about MV Link in the chat. And listen, I
Mm.
followed Mellanox for a very, very long time, and Voltaire as well. These are companies that you may not have heard of before. So Voltaire was making switches for InfiniBand back in like the 2000s, 2010s, and Mellanox was making NICs that were like 10 gig, 20 gig, 40 gig at the time. Now the reason this is really, really important for this kind of area is because we can finally talk about storage and being able to like read from your storage really quickly, or if you're maybe
Mm.
less excited about storage than I am, you can do something called remote direct memory access. So you can have a GPU in a different computer look like it's in your computer, which is pretty awesome when you start thinking
Yeah.
about a cluster of computers that have GPUs that
Right.
may be less or more busy and CPUs that are sort of powering. It becomes like a really cool facility to actually start ganging PCIe devices together in one big computer that could have like 40,000 PCIe devices, and you could actually go through them and use them like you'd use a hard drive kind of thing. So going in
Wow.
and essentially using your IO scheduling across multiple PCIe devices that aren't in your computer as a large HPC was something InfiniBand's been doing for a really long time. This next level stuff, though, is that we're talking directly to the GPU, is my understanding, as opposed to the PCIe bus, which was phenomenal. That is my take on it. I'm gonna hop by that booth tomorrow though, because it just opened up when we were setting up our booth at the show. But I will go in and find out. But that's my understanding. So RDMA is next level. Like it's been. They were talking about Argonne Lab, which is a pretty big US lab, basically. I have a friend who works there, so I also watch Argonne pretty closely, but they did build a supercomputer based on something within InfiniBand backplane, if I understand it correctly. So it's really cool stuff. I'd love to talk to them about it and see how it works. But when I was playing with it for things like VMware and stuff like that, it was really neat because you could take your HBA, that's like the controller that talks to all of your disks, and you could remotely map that PCIe device on a different computer, which is it's phenomenal. So basically, you could do things like what I was doing was testing ZFS on multiple operating systems, which is a no-no. You do not do this. Make sure you export your disks before you like mount them again. But that's what I was doing, and it was actually really neat.
I didn't understand a lot of
that. Sorry, somebody probably made it worse.
Yeah.
So imagine a cable that allows you to like remotely access PCIe
Well,
devices.
so one of the, I mean, with loading up a new model, say with Olama,
Yep.
and you've got multiple, okay, one GPU, and it's not, we're not talking about a Mac. That's talking about
Yep.
another GPU. It takes a bit of time to load the stuff into memory. And so
Yes.
if your GPU is on a remote machine, even if it looks
Yes.
like it's there, does that mean it's going to be even slower to load up that content into the...
Yeah, it depends is the easy answer here. So the main thing, I guess, is that you can get faster access to storage in order to read from it more quickly in order to load it into memory. Because I think is that not the slowest part right now? It's like the downloading is probably the slowest, and then once it's downloaded, then it's loading into memory seems to be the slowest for me, at least. So I would say it should be able to increase that speed. But then again, like, is it gonna be faster than like the MacBook Pro's internal storage talking to the internal GPU memory? Like maybe not, but I think in an HPC situation, this is going to make it a little bit more nimble, essentially, because those computers that are running these GPUs are generally not the computers that are running your storage at the same time. So I was picking TLAs, like US TLAs, having worked with them a little bit before. That's the three-letter acronym kind of companies that maybe they're storing gobs of data, that kind of stuff. They've got a lot of data that they want to add to their RAG. And when they're loading their petabytes or yottabytes of data, how quickly does that look like, or how many days or weeks or months or years? And will latency be important, or bandwidth, or both? I'm not sure. But having speed increases, I think will be really good for them. Or if something goes down, being able to quickly hop over to another node and load a model up quickly, I think it'd be a pretty big boon to stability for the HPC. Yeah, so Brian's in the chat. I agreed, Brian. So I was only using one HBA, and it was already complicated. Using 3 remote GPUs would certainly be difficult.
You said, maybe downloading the model is the slowest, but actually sometimes I know that they had done a lot of work at Olama to make sure that the download and upload of models to the registry is actually, if you have a fast enough connection, the SSD is the bottleneck.
Interesting. Okay,
so
maybe it
will fully saturate a super fast connection, and then your SSD is your bottleneck.
Yeah, so I think we're at the stage now, and this is, again, I I really like storage. I'm sorry, folks. I realize that a lot of people here are more interested in graphics, but where we're at now is that PCIe 4 SSDs are sort of the de facto. They get very hot, unfortunately. However, in the data center, they've long since moved to U1, U2, U3 disks that are quite a bit faster and much lower latency, and can actually like talk to PCIe as well. But in terms of those like problems with those like I don't know, power for one thing, the PCIe 5 devices are power hungry. Heat is the other one, so they need like massive heat sinks now, and they cause the system to actually run quite warm. Being able to have that in like a U2 drive or a U3 drive would actually decrease the latency, which is incredibly important for a lot of like database operations, but also increase the bandwidth, so you could actually read from it quicker. So loading it into memory would be better.
Yeah, I haven't dealt with like hardware, getting a motherboard, putting a CPU in there, putting cards. I haven't dealt
I
with
know.
any of that stuff
I know.
it's got to be 25 years. So
We're gonna I think we're
hardware?
just gonna like ship you some parts here. We're gonna ship you an AMD graphics card, an Intel motherboard, and tell you to get started on a Hackintosh or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do think that that's one area where consumer storage is actually lagging quite a bit behind. So there may not be an understanding that NVMe drives are in fact actually slow. And to get to the next level, you're looking at U2, which are like, let's be clear, U2 drives are like refurbished 10-year-old drives from data centers generally.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can get about 4 terabytes for about 400 Canadian dollars. So I'd assume that's about 300 US on U2, which is not only faster than the NVMe drives, but also has much lower latency. And they're very old. These are Intel drives, like the old Intel Optane storage kind of thing. The U3 drives are leagues ahead of that at this point.
Yeah.
But for more information about that, I think like Level 1 Techs is probably a good channel to look at. And just imagine, like, whenever Wendell's talking about this storage, imagine that it could be remotely accessed by another computer, as if it were local, over like an 800 gigabit connection, in case you missed that spec on the NVLink speed, but it's very, very, very fast.
Wow.
Yeah, like this is faster than the PCIe bus for a lot of things. Depending on the bus generation that you're dealing with, it's quite a bit faster than the internal PCIe. Oh, what is this?
Using different models connected to a single GPU, Aloma will load models. Yeah, okay. You want to run 2 models concurrently.
This is the same person who was asking questions last week, right? I think.
I don't know. Where did you see that? Because I don't know if, I mean, Olama doesn't have any ability to, on its own, to load 2 models concurrently, unless you're doing something to create a second Olama server that somehow is working at the same time. But then you'd have to figure out how to restrict one model to only using one GPU, which I don't know how to do.
I feel like this is better solved in the software side than like the API serving side. OpenWeb UI.
Okay.
Yeah, so OpenWeb UI is the software that's handling this logic. Yeah. Which that was my understanding as well. It sounded too good to be true, right? To be honest.
Yeah.
Love to just throw 30 GPUs at Olama and see what happens.
Yeah.
Now, one thing about this NVLink switch is that I like didn't really talk about, but all those GPUs that are connected together can actually become like one big GPU cluster, so they can look like one big GPU is my understanding, which is like a big deal. So NVLink used to be like a little there's like I think there's a little, what was that thing that you would like put 2 graphics cards together? Wasn't that NVLink? You just like oh shoot, I've forgotten the term for it, but basically you could put 2 graphics cards together. There's like a cable between the 2. And I think that's why they're reusing this name to say like, hey, this is now for the data center kind of thing. So if you've got a bunch of these in a row in multiple racks.
Something?
SMI? No,
SMI.
Is it SMI? Okay. It might be. I'm thinking management interface. So for me, it's I'm not sure. Okay, so there's quite a few people using it. Okay, awesome. Yeah, and then there's so Brian's saying, yeah, maybe one to run the embeddings and then the other one for LLM.
Yeah.
And I think basically the way that works, like when we're thinking about a RAG stack, so someone asked about the questions, that the sort of naive RAG stack would be that you'd be doing that like once on one end, so like using the GPU, and then loading on the other end. So once you've got the embeddings, you would load.
Mhm.
Is that the way you're doing it as well? Because that's what I've been doing essentially. So you
Yeah,
run through
yeah,
one big process that does all of your
right.
embeddings.
Does all the import a whole bunch of documents, split it up into smaller pieces, embed
Mhm.
those, and then when you have a query, you embed that, do the similarity comparison using cosine similarity, or there's some other uh,
Mhm.
formulas to do that, um, to figure out which are the most similar, um, and then feed the original text, not the embeds, the original text for that correspond to each one of those blocks, and feed that to the model.
Yeah. And Brian's got a pretty
But
good use case here.
yeah, but
3,200 documents
using
a day.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead.
The uh the what was I gonna say? I don't know. Yeah, 3,200 doc. I mean, that's one of the nice things about, well, when Olama started supporting BERT and the nomic
Right.
embed models, that just made everything so much faster. And so dealing with, hopefully each document is not thousands of pages, but if they are, I mean, it at least is able to chug through all that information a lot more quickly than it did before. Well, it used to before, it was just using standard models, which really sucks
Right.
at embedding. And so you'd really have to use either Hugging Face's API or OpenAI's API, or somebody else's to do that embedding.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
The other thing that we're seeing a lot of is sort of those so you get the DevRel people at NVIDIA GTC talking about DevRel things. One of those
Hmm.
talks this morning was how to create new levels for old PC 3D games. Now, I didn't attend this session, but
Mm.
I got some secondhand. I had someone else attend it for me because I wasn't feeling great this morning. But basically, you can make new Half-Life 2 levels using Gen AI at this point in time, which I thought
Mm.
was pretty cool.
Pretty cool,
Did you
yeah.
see the news about the Echo Lost level for the SNES that was recreated using Gen AI from VHS footage of the level?
No,
Has this come up in your travels?
no.
Okay, so this is amazing. So in Japan in the 90s, let's say like 95, 96, just before I got there, it was there when I got there, but they released something called BS, I think it's a B satellite, Satellaview,
Hmm.
which would allow you to download things off of satellites onto a cartridge, that cartridge in your Famicom. So imagine it's got like a little NAND flash or something inside of it. Probably
Hmm.
different technology back then, but like a ROM that you could write to essentially, like an EEPROM basically. There are some levels, unfortunately, that were very unique. Like they were time limited. You had to be on the service. They were time limited, like a Grand Prix thing. There are four of them, and the only way people have been able to resurface these levels is by buying these used kind of they're basically floppies, right? Imagine buying just used floppies, hoping that there's something on them. So they're buying these used
Hmm.
cartridges from Japan, hoping that there's a game on there or that they can like unerase it and like see if there's something on there from before, because most of them are erased prior to being sold. And they had no luck. So there was a $5,000 reward on one of the four levels that they just could not recreate, unfortunately. They just did not find it on any of the cartridges, nothing they could do. But there was actually somebody who had VHS recorded like almost like a tournament or something like that in this game in F-Zero, and using that footage, they were able to essentially piece together, piece by piece, how the track worked. I think they're still working on the background, unfortunately, because of parallax. They haven't necessarily seen
Sure.
all of the background to be able to sort of fill in the blanks. But in terms of the track, because it's very similar textures, basically, they're able to recreate the
Hmm.
entire track, understand the binary format of the F-Zero tracks, and import it into the game and release it as something that people could play, which I thought
Wow.
was amazing. And I realize there's tools out
Yeah.
there where you can like doodle a game and it will make it work for you. But for me, this sort of recreating or extending something from the past and being able to create new content for it based on just video footage, to me it's a dream. It's kind of amazing. Like very, very cool application of it. There was some more at the conference, obviously, that are maybe more important, like giving people the ability to see where they maybe could not before with like haptic devices, that kind of stuff, or being able to hear or communicate by basically using electrode stimulation, but by using Gen AI to sort of help them out in terms of the way that it would be expressed as a voice, or like if it's neurons to text, giving that text a voice that matches the person's I don't know, self-image or image of themselves.
Right.
For me, I thought that was very, very cool. But of course, my my teenager brain is like, F-Zero, this is really cool.
Wow.
It's awesome. And there's people in the chat helping each other, which is always fantastic.
That's amazing.
GPU bifurcation.
Wow.
It looks like a lot of the things that were popular sort of during the Bitcoin mining era are now becoming popular in Gen A. So bifurcation was one of them. So being able to take like a by 16 slot and split it up into like 4x4 by 4x4, and then having 4 cables go out to 4 GPUs kind of thing. You wouldn't get all of the bandwidth, but you get enough that you could actually use it to start calculating proof of work or whatever it was. But yeah, at this point in time, people are trying to figure out how they can add more GPUs to the system to run more things. Like they've got one assistant that's dedicated to a GPU. They've got maybe a RAG stack that they're running at the same time. And this is just now we're experimenting, but this is going to be part of, I think, like data center server design. It's really cool to see like a software, you know, not revolution, but maybe sea change, like a big software change pushing all the way down to the hardware stack. I think it's going to be amazing. Yeah, sorry, I talked a lot. I know my connection's not that great, so I probably dropped it a couple times. I apologize, but so far my mind is just racing. This conference has been really
good. Yeah. What other news do you have?
Multiple GPUs. Other than that, like, listen, we talked a little bit in the green room before the chat, but my big purchase was that little iPhone adapter for the iPhone to put on the back of my computer to do it. And I will say for Zoom and things like that, it is phenomenal. And I've been lagging. I think it's called continuity or something like that. Webcam continuity. It is phenomenal. There's no lag. It is phenomenal. No. Basically,
I'm glad
the iPhone is within a certain range. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm glad that it didn't work, because even the built-in camera is kind of laggy on this one. So
fair enough. Yeah, it would have been awful in higher quality. Sure. But yeah, that was about, I think it was $30 Canadian, and it's honestly like the quality is phenomenal. Also, if you travel a lot, it seems like a no-brainer. I thought it was sort of just magic.
What, the actual adapter, or just the fact that
the continuity?
What was the $30?
It's phenomenal. The $30 was just that Belkin kind of like a MagSafe thing that pops on.
This little puck.
It might be $22 Canadian. Sorry, USD.
Yeah, I mean, I got that a while back. Well, I guess when I did one of these calls when I was in Palo Alto 6-8 months ago, I got one of these, and it's great. And actually, it's become like my phone feels a little weird without it, because I mean, I'm using it just the way that, you know, all the kids use pop clips or whatever they are, those kind of popper things.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. What's interesting is that I'm not sure about the ones that you see all over the place, but someone I worked with at Samsung, their dad actually invented the Popsocket.
Oh, really?
And when I talked to her about it, because I'm not great at understanding market, when I talked to her, I was like, that seems kind of not great, not useful. Then it became huge. This was back in like 2016, I think is when I talked to her about it. Wow. Huge. I kind of laughed, but like, it's become a massive hit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I probably just don't have one because I'm ticked off that I didn't think it was going to be a thing back then. But my significant other has a Popsocket and loves it. Like
Yeah.
could not use a phone
Wow.
without it, kind of thing. Just as you were saying, like
Yeah.
you get used to having
Yeah.
it there. So
Although it
I think those
doesn't,
little
do
ergonomic
that.
buttons are awesome.
Does the PopSock? Does it interfere with charging? Do you have to take it off to charge the
Oh yeah,
MagSafe charging?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And the pop sockets generally stick to your phone or stick to your case, so they're
Mm,
permanent. Which is why I thought this one was also permanent, but
right.
it's not. So just prior to the show, folks, Matt showed me that the sticker on the back of this thing wasn't it wasn't that the device was sticky, it's that the sticker was sticky. So I just pulled it off and I was like, oh, this is amazing. I thought it was like a design flaw that you had to stick it to the back of your phone. Anyways, sometimes yeah. I know some things, other things it's obvious I just don't know. Geography and possibly pop sockets. Taryn's asking about NIMS. So I mean, I kind of covered it a little bit, but to me, it feels like a marketplace. And I guess I'm still thinking back to Kitematic. I'm not going to leave this alone, but I really did like having that Kitematic menu for things that you could use on Docker on your laptop. I think like Factorio was kind of those ones that I remember. Like I'd never have heard of
Right.
Factorio if it weren't Kitematic, and I never would have tried figuring out ports, for example, so early on without Kitematic. And I think there was volumes as well. So ports and volumes and Factorio in Kitematic kind of blew my mind back in the day and got me down that path of using Docker. I feel like NIMS is going to be the same in terms of giving you maybe like a GPU app marketplace. But, and I hate to reiterate, but it does feel like a bit of vendor lock-in. And I know that there are no competitors yet, but this ecosystem does look like it's one of those ones where it might be specific to NVIDIA GPUs. And I say this as a person, not as a partner, but I do wonder what monitoring would look like in NIMS. So of course, that's where my brain is. Like, do you need a sidecar? Do I just deploy, like, let's even thinking open source, Prometheus, Grafana, what have you, in there, what does that look like? Or is there a DCGM exporter? And then can I use all the tools I'm already using to look at my data center graphics, I think it's manager, to let me know what's going on in the GPUs in my data center? Or is it that's completely separate and that will still exist as like an also ran outside of that? Oh, well, we get more people joining. Endo, we get some regulars now.
Yeah.
But that's my take on NIMS, Taryn. I think it's certainly a space to watch. I'm interested to see what looks like in the open source space. Maybe is my view here. And again, that's just me personally. But I feel like a lot of the growth that we've had in leaps and bounds in this space are because of open source projects, and I want to see more of that. So I didn't get the feeling that NIMS was, but again, maybe I need to kick the tires a bit more.
Custom accelerator boards with expandable memory slots. I have no idea what that would mean.
Yeah, so imagine that you've got so we're in the DPU kind of era. There's GPUs and then there's the DPUs. I can't remember what the D stands for, but it's like a processing unit that's outside of your CPU, your GPU. I think Coral is the one that I've ordered that's on the way.
Oh yeah.
But imagine if you could add HB RAM or HB mem to the Coral. So instead of, if you bought a 2 gig one, you could user upgrade it to something like a 20 gig or 24 gig Coral, which would be a pretty big deal. And that's kind of where we are now. Like if the graphics card is the computer of the future, then how do I add more RAM to my graphics card? I think is the question here. Yeah, and the premise is huge. Oh, okay. I hadn't heard of Truffle. Okay, so we're getting some stuff in the chat here. I will need to look into Truffle. I had not heard about it. But yeah, that's where we are now.
What does Brian say Truffle is?
Yeah, hey, Brian, let us know what Truffle is. But I think that is very interesting. Truffle GPU, perhaps. I'm finding a lot of food stuff when I pull up Truffle. Oh, interesting. So it's from a company called Deep Shard.
Called what?
Okay. It's a language model from a company called Deep Shard. Truffle, it looks like. Yeah, so it's a COBOL expert that you can pair with, for example, is one of the examples that they've got. They've got some we'll call them NSFW examples on here as well. I don't know if these are randomly generated or what have you. Okay, interesting. So there's a 10 billion parameter model and an 85 billion parameter model, which is pretty large, right? Oh, and we haven't even talked about X and their open source model. Have you played with this yet?
No.
It's like 800 billion parameter model. I don't know what GPU that's going to be loaded on, for example. This is what I was thinking about when we were talking about NVLink and having like a network of GPUs and having them all talk together. I was like, how can we load this open source model from X? So is it X1 or something like that was released recently? Had you not come across that?
I have no idea. No.
Okay.
I'm feeling very stupid on this episode.
I thought it was called X1, XAI, Grok 1. It's called Grok 1. Okay. So Grok 1 is, and Terran's nailed it on the head. So as far as I understand, it's not quantized yet. So running it means that you need to have a lot of money. and I've got some money. I don't have a lot, and I don't have like this type of money. Because like this is where you need to contact Michael Dell to get him to at least give you a row of computers. It's not going to be cheap. So Terran, I'm on the same boat as you, just waiting for the quantization. It is in fact Grok 1. I had to pull it up. My apologies. And it's so large that it doesn't basically fit on any GPU or any computer or any Mac that you could buy at this point in time. So the question is whether or not the bloke will come around and save us, or somebody else could come out and quantize it for us. 50K. 50K sounds cheap, basically.
Yeah.
Brian's saying 50K. I think it might be more around 100. I could be wrong, and maybe this is that I'm looking at Canadian prices instead of US here, but not cheap to get a rack of GPUs, unfortunately. Yeah. Okay. So Eric, Matt. Maybe you know Eric. We can find Dolphin Grok 1. I guess.
Yeah. Eric Hartford.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would still love to interview the bloke, obviously, even if they need to be anonymous or something like that. That would be excellent. But yeah, listen, we've been talking for 50 minutes. Sorry, I feel like I've taken up most of the time talking about GTC and scooping you on news. But
that's good.
I
didn't have much coming in, so this is good. I have a few new items that are coming today. So I don't have any like things to recommend. I will find out what they're like I think it's 2 stops away according to Amazon now.
I love that.
And but it's nothing super exciting. So my dog is my dog in here? I don't think.
What?
No. So
I don't think so.
So my dog right now has this problem with licking.
Okay.
Licking her paws, and so her paw goes dark because of the saliva, and she's constantly licking, and then it also makes it red because she's licking it so much. And one thought is, well, maybe she's bored. That's one possible. So I have a whole bunch of dog toys coming in that will hopefully entice her to have fun rather than licking paws. And so that's what my big excitement thing
now
is.
Listen, I think we've talked about this before, but are you taking your dog in for grooming on a regular basis? And you kind of laughed at me, but like I do wonder, like really the claws, right? Because that's what I was thinking of. Like maybe the dog's licking because of the claws are bugging it.
Speaking of,
there you go. Speaking of the dog,
come here. Let's demonstrate your paws. Your paws. So
poor Jade.
Here's this paw.
Hi, Jade.
See how dark it is? It's all very dark because of her constantly licking. Yeah.
It could be. Yeah, it's probably worth looking at.
I mean, the other thing is, if you feel around and there's something that definitely hurts her, well, maybe it's actually she's trying to get it out, but there's nothing there. So I mean, she doesn't mind.
Poor thing.
So she got a vet visit coming up in a few days, and
maybe like an X-ray or something. That's pretty smart. I'm not a veterinarian, obviously. Don't take my advice, but the one thing for us that we noticed that like, yeah, they get pretty long. They tend to like slip around or like they'll get them caught in something and it can hurt. It's like just
Yeah.
pulling up a fingernail on your end, right? Like or a hangnail or something could bug you. But
well, this one doesn't have the nails is not a problem. She doesn't have to get her nails clipped very often. But her fur, her hair. I mean, it's a Havanese, so it's partially fur, partially hair, and the hair grows very fast. And so we have to get her. We either have to brush a lot every day, which we do not, or we have to take her to get groomed because otherwise it would just be this knotty mess. And so we have to go take her to get groomed every 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay, I apologize. I thought we had talked about this and you were laughing about the grooming, but like, yeah, it's like it's easy. You just have the groomer take care of it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, rock salt. Yeah, that is Brian actually has a really good point. Yeah, so I've also mentioned that my dogs wear boots to protect them from the things in the environment. But like salt, at least recently, people are like over salting for some reason at the slightest thread of snow, and it rarely snows in Vancouver, but there's still salt everywhere. And I've heard that it can kind of burn the paw pads. Yeah, ice melting stuff is the other one. Yeah, for sure.
They use sand here, no salt.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that is fantastic. I wish we did that here. I don't know why we don't.
Yeah, because it's not as effective. That's why.
I mean, it's fun. We don't get that much snow. Yeah, we don't get that much snow.
We don't get snow.
Okay. And Brian says like even after it's gone, the irritation can stay. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So hopefully, and then my other, I've got another toy coming in a few days.
We get time.
In 2
Go
days.
ahead. You look like you're in a hurry.
No. I've got another toy coming in a couple of days, and that's I'm finally getting with the DJI Pocket 3, the Osmo Pocket 3, the little gimbal on a.
Right on.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard the quality of that is actually really, really good. Yeah.
Quite amazing. Yeah.
And it does that thing that that the Facebook portal would do in that it can like follow you, which is really interesting, similar to a drone. So you can like draw a bounding box or like recognize a human and have it follow you around, which is really cool. I love those videos where like people are just doing things. Rick Mercer is my favorite. He's a Canadian comedian. You've probably never seen it. But he walks down the street and talks. I'm like, what's the deal with Canadian politics? It's all about politics. But anyway, a really, really funny guy. But he'll be just walking around the street in Montreal. I'm like, and you know what? It really grinds my gears, like that kind of stuff. And I just like it. He's just like power walking, stops, says something, turns around, walks the other way, and says some more things. It's just like as somebody who likes to pace and rant, I'm like, this is perfect. Like you saw the Cantrell video. Like this is my mobile Cantrell device, so like to capture my rants, so that I can like then rehearse them and put them up on stage. But to me, that's what it looks phenomenal for something like that. So I can just put it in like a stationary position in kitchen, do the normal, I don't know, walking and venting that I do when I'm thinking about stuff or pacing. And then have it, you just speak out loud and have it recorded, I think would be a really cool way for me to like brainstorm basically. Cause I do that right now. Like I'll go for a walk across the bridge and I'll be like listening to a podcast or something like that and thinking, but what I'm not doing is vocalizing and like recording any of these thoughts, unfortunately. So the Osmo looks amazing to me.
Yeah. Looking forward to that.
Awesome. I think that's it. I'm looking on the desk. Like I brought so much gear with me that like just didn't work for what I was trying to do for this thing. What I really needed was like a mobile internet connection, which is the phone. And I think what I did was I forgot to turn off like Apple updates because I plugged it in earlier this morning and I went through 10 gigs in 20 minutes. I don't know what macOS was doing, but it's doing something in the background. It's probably an OS update. Because it blew through the data. 5G is very fast, which is awesome. But unfortunately, like I didn't even know there was a tethering limit in the US, but I guess they actually they can tell when you're tethering, and they set a limit on it. So I apologize for the hotel Wi-Fi.
I did tethering once, and my tethering use changed company policy for the company I was at. So once I was
always a good sign.
I was traveling. I was traveling. So up until then, the official policy was, yes, use tethering if you are, if you're somewhere remote and you need to connect, absolutely use tethering, and that was a company called OpenText, and they just paid my phone bill. I never really saw my phone bill. Um, and they paid for the phone and everything. So they just said, yes, just tether, no problem. And so I just finished something really important and then went on vacation. And I was flying from Amsterdam, where I was living, to,
Yep.
I must have been going to Nepal. But I stopped,
Okay.
I went via Bangkok. And
Okay.
so I was in Bangkok, and I needed to just check one thing. I needed to connect for one thing, and the hotel Wi-Fi was down. And so I tethered my Mac through to the connection to see if this one email went through. I was connected for 5 minutes, and
Whoa. Okay.
like 2 months later, 3 months later, I'm back from Nepal. I'm back to work, and I get an email saying, we need to talk. And this is from one of the senior vice presidents of the company.
Oh no.
And my phone bill was in the top 5 or so for the whole company. And the whole company is a big company.
Yeah.
And my normal phone bill was like, I don't know, 200 euros or so a month. But this one phone
That's
bill
quite a bit.
was 850 euros. So
That
can you explain this? It's like, what? And it was that one 5-minute tether
was
was,
it roaming?
um,
Tether plus roaming?
it was roaming. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
not local in Bangkok. And
Right.
so my KPN phone bill said 850. And so it was about a $650 connection for that 5 minutes. I don't know
Wow.
how
And there
much
was
went
nothing you could
through.
do.
Nothing
Yeah,
you could
like
do.
I've called the company and I've talked them down a little bit, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's
But
tough.
because it's so many months from the time that, it happened, then they send the bill, and then, OpenText kind of sat on it and then finally processes it, and then a report gets
Yeah.
generated months later, and then it's like, well, what did you do, 4 months ago? I don't know. I can barely remember it 4 days ago. So yeah, that was. And then they
That's
changed
awesome.
policy. No more tethering.
All right. No more tethering, Matt. No tethering, Matt. Should we call it?
I think so. Let's find the end stream button.
All right. This is awesome. Thank you very much again to the people in the
Thank
chat. I
you. Oh my
apologize
God,
for the
60 people.
quality.
60 people were
This is
here.
phenomenal.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay.
I,
I
I
almost
will
don't want
say
to
I
press
did
the end
shave
stream
this
button.
week because we got
I
complaints
know.
last week.
Yeah. And
So hopefully this is
and
better. I'll work on the video
probably
quality. Yeah.
even more amazing, not the
Yeah.
hair, anything like that. You're not wearing the Datadog in Sydney shirt. It's like first time in
It
like
did come
weeks.
with me. I did think about where it's like my Tuesday shirt. It's in the
Yeah.
drawer.
Okay.
I was trying not to wear like a vendor T-shirt around like the city, because like people
Mhm.
want to. There's salespeople here, there's market research people here,
Right.
and stuff like
Right.
that. So yeah, I'm trying to fly under the
Where is it?
radar. I'm wearing like a Lululemon or something.
Mm.
Where is it over here? It's in
Where's the
San
conference?
Jose. So
Okay.
SAP Center or something like that.
Mm.
Or at least the keynote was there, yeah.
Hmm.
But right downtown San Jose. Yeah.
Okay. I haven't been there in
All right, folks.
years. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna end stream.
Never been there.